With the selection of a jury in the Sean Diddy Combs case almost complete, prosecutors are preparing for opening arguments on Monday. But they admit there's a snag. One of their key witnesses against the rapper appears to have gone missing.
Court actually adjourned early today, and there are 45 prospective jurors. Now, what happens is the next step is that each side gets a certain number where they can just say, we don't want him. We don't want him. Each side gets to sort of knock people down for that.
This comes as we learn that Combs' ex-girlfriend, who was seen on video being assaulted by the rapper, is pregnant. Here's Les Trent.
Is a key witness in the Sean Diddy Combs trial backing out? Victim number 3, as she's called, was set to testify against the music mogul.
The clock is ticking in the P. Diddy case. Witnesses for the government will soon take the stand, and it's gonna be some compelling stuff. But now there's word that one victim is ghosting. Will she just be a no-show?
What happens is if people go into a trial believing the firepower on the prosecution is so strong, I mean, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, it's a 95 that it's so strong, but it goes down to an 88.
Bill and Sade, accepting a plea agreement would mean that Sean Combs would have to admit to trafficking and force. And today he made it very clear that was not going to happen. Diddy maintained all along these encounters involved consenting adults and plans to take his chances that a jury agrees.
That helps the defense because everybody goes in thinking, wow, they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and they're going to prove this, and all of a sudden, none of it's there. I think that actually helps the defense.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs back behind bars, a magistrate judge denying him bail, saying that there were no conditions that she could conceive of that would make her confident that he would appear again for other court appearances. The judge saying, my concern is this is a crime that happens behind closed doors.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
She was supposed to walk into court and testify, with no alias, no disguise, no fear. But now, days before opening statements, victim number 3 is missing. Not missing like showed up late, missing like completely vanished. No calls, no updates, and her lawyer has gone silent. And this isn't just some side character in Diddy's trial. According to federal prosecutors, she's one of the core accusers, tied directly to the racketeering conspiracy that could land Sean Diddy Combs in prison for life. So, how does a star witness, one the government was counting on, just disappear? Let's be real, this isn't a small case. This is one of the most high-profile criminal trials in entertainment history. Diddy is up against charges of sex trafficking, coercion, transportation for illegal activity, and a decades-long pattern of alleged abuse masked as lavish celebrity living. And yet, at the exact moment when every detail matters, when jurors are being seated and strategies finalized, one of the government's biggest witnesses goes off the grid. Her lawyer told prosecutors he's dealing with personal issues.
12 jurors and 6 alternates do you want? And it takes some time.
And both sides will be working, actually, as we speak, have begun working on that.
The government says they've tried contacting her multiple times with no response. And now Diddy's defense team is calling it out for what it is, a massive red flag. Because if a key witness vanishes before trial even begins, what does that say about the rest of the case? Was she pressured? Was she scared? Or did she never want to testify at all? We're diving into the timeline, the theories, and the wild courtroom ripple effect of this sudden disappearance, and why some people think this could give Diddy his first big break in a case that's otherwise stacked against him. But before we unpack what her absence means legally, let's rewind. Who exactly is victim number 3, and why was her testimony so crucial in the first place? She's not as famous as Cassie. She's not front and center in the headlines. But in the eyes of the prosecution, victim number 3 was a key player, someone who could connect the dots between Diddy's alleged private behavior and a pattern of organized criminal activity. According to court documents, she was one of 4 central women named in the racketeering and trafficking charges brought against Diddy. And while victims 1 and 2 are reportedly tied to the more widely known incidents, including the infamous hotel footage of Cassie, victim number 3's role was different. She was supposed to be the bridge witness. She wasn't just someone who allegedly attended the so-called freak-off parties. She reportedly had insight into how those events were arranged, paid for, and protected. According to the government, she could speak to the logistics, how Diddy and his team allegedly facilitated transportation.
A lawsuit filed against Sean Diddy Combs accuses the music performer and executive of rape, physical abuse, and sex trafficking. The singer Cassie says the incidents occurred throughout her 10-year relationship with Combs.
Silenced victims and operated behind the scenes. And here's the wild part. She initially agreed to testify using her real name, not a pseudonym, not Jane Doe. That's incredibly rare in cases this sensitive, especially when the accusations involve abuse, control, and powerful men. Prosecutors saw that as a sign of strength, a message that she was ready to speak her truth publicly. In fact, her testimony was so anticipated, some insiders believed she'd be one of the opening week witnesses, possibly right after Cassie. Together, they were meant to show the jury that this wasn't about one isolated case. It was a pattern, a system. But now, with her missing, that carefully structured narrative is under threat, and the prosecution's tone has shifted from confident to cautious. If she stays gone, a big part of their racketeering argument loses momentum. If she shows up late, the timeline and witness order gets scrambled. And if she appears scared or hesitant, the defense could seize on that moment and plant seeds of doubt in the jury's mind. And that's why this isn't just a no-show. It's a legal earthquake. Because the timing of her disappearance couldn't be worse, and the clock was already ticking. The timing of this couldn't be more suspicious. It all started on Monday, May 5th, just as jury selection was heating up. That's when federal prosecutors quietly informed the judge that they were no longer in contact with victim number 3. At first, it seemed like a hiccup. Her attorney, who had been coordinating with the government, told the court he was dealing with personal issues. He didn't explain what those were. He just stopped responding to calls, emails, and court communications. And here's where it gets weird. This wasn't just a passive witness. Victim number 3 had been subpoenaed. Legally, she was obligated to appear in court. The prosecution had even adjusted their trial strategy under the assumption that she would testify, and testify publicly. So when her lawyer ghosted and she stopped returning calls, panic set in behind the scenes. Over the next 2 days, whispers started to leak. Maybe she didn't want to testify after all. Reports surfaced that she had relocated out of state and was feeling pressure about being thrust into such a high-profile trial.
Her suit was filed under a law that allows alleged sexual offense victims to file past the statute of limitations. Cassie says she wanted to speak out before that law expires next week.
Whether that pressure came from media attention, personal safety fears, or something more sinister, nobody knows. What we do know is that by May 8th, just days before opening arguments, she was still unreachable. Her attorney hadn't reappeared, no update, no statement, nothing. And suddenly Diddy's defense team saw blood in the water. They immediately demanded the prosecution declare their plans. Was she testifying or not? If not, they argued, the court needed to reassess how much weight her allegations should carry, especially in the racketeering charge, where her voice was supposed to be a linchpin. It's a strategic goldmine for the defense. A vanished witness in a federal trial creates not just a legal gap, but a psychological one. It makes jurors wonder, if one of the alleged victims won't show up, is there something we're not being told? But Diddy's lawyers didn't stop at raising questions. They turned it into leverage. And their next move could put the prosecution on the defensive before the trial even begins. The moment prosecutors admitted they couldn't reach victim number 3, Diddy's defense team pounced. And honestly, you can't blame them. In a case this explosive, even the slightest disruption can be flipped into a narrative advantage. And that's exactly what they're doing. Their first move? Demand immediate clarity. They argued that the government was being vague, dragging their feet, unsure of whether this witness would appear or not. And that uncertainty, they claimed, wasn't just inconvenient, it was unfair to the jury. Then they pushed it further. Diddy's lawyers want the racketeering conspiracy charge re-examined, since victim number 3's testimony was expected to support major parts of that count. Without her voice, they argue, the structure of the prosecution's case starts to look shakier.
Mr. Combs has denied all the allegations. For more, let's bring in entertainment attorney Dante Mills. So, Dante, thanks for being with us. Cassie has signed with that label when she was just 19, and Sean Combs was 37. What's alleged to have happened after that?
Thank you for having me, Catherine. So in this lawsuit, I just wanted to be clear, this is a civil lawsuit.
Not collapsed, but definitely less solid. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The defense didn't just focus on legal logistics. They turned it into a credibility problem. In court filings and closed-door discussions, they've reportedly suggested that the government overpromised, that they hyped up the strength of their witnesses, only to now face one of them bailing, right before the spotlight hits. To jurors, that kind of thing matters, because let's be real, this isn't a calm courtroom where everyone trusts the system. This is a celebrity trial, full of scandal, mystery, and millions of eyes watching. If the jury senses that even one of the accusers isn't sure about testifying, it casts a long shadow of doubt over everyone else taking the stand. And doubt is exactly what Diddy's team needs. They don't have to prove he's innocent. They just have to plant enough questions in the jury's mind to create reasonable doubt. Missing witnesses, disappearing lawyers, delayed answers. That's the kind of chaos that defense attorneys dream of. But the government isn't sitting still. Behind the scenes, they're scrambling to figure out their next move. And fast. Because if this mystery isn't solved soon, it could derail everything they've spent months building. While the defense plays offense, the prosecution is in full damage control mode. And behind closed doors, sources say the energy inside the U.S. Attorney's Office has shifted from confident to calculated. Their lead prosecutor, Maureen Comey, isn't new to high-stakes trials. She helped bring down Ghislaine Maxwell, and her courtroom strategy is known to be precise and methodical. But even the best-prepared team can't predict when a witness just disappears. So now, the prosecution has a few tough choices. None of them ideal. Option 1. Stall and hope. Maybe victim number 3 reappears midway through the trial. Maybe her lawyer resurfaces. But that's risky. Delays could look sloppy.
Federal judge has denied Sean Diddy Combs' efforts to delay the start of his upcoming sex trafficking trial.
And if she never comes back, the narrative damage is done. Option 2. Restructure the case without her. This would mean downplaying parts of the racketeering conspiracy and shifting focus to the other victims, especially Cassie and victim number 2, who are still confirmed to testify. But that also gives the defense ammunition to say, if your star witnesses are this unreliable, how strong is your case really? Option 3. Issue a bench warrant. Force compliance? After all, she was subpoenaed. But here's the catch. Dragging a reluctant witness into court can backfire. If she looks scared, uncertain, or contradicts earlier statements, it could hand the defense a gold-plated moment of doubt. For now, it seems the prosecution is taking a wait-and-strategize approach. They've reportedly told the court they'll mention victim number 3 briefly in opening arguments, but avoid diving deep into her story unless she shows up later. That way, if she comes back, they can reintroduce her testimony. If she doesn't, they've minimized the blow. But make no mistake, her absence still looms large. Every legal team knows that trials are built on momentum, a shaky opening, a disappearing witness. It all makes the jury lean in with suspicion instead of belief. And when your opponent is someone like Diddy, with millions to spend on defense and an empire of influence, you can't afford to blink. And while the feds try to patch holes, there's one more twist in play. What happens if the court decides to escalate this and force her hand? So here's the big legal question floating around the courtroom right now. Can victim number 3 be forced to testify? Short answer, yes. But the real answer is, it's complicated. Since she was subpoenaed, she's legally obligated to appear. That's not optional. If she refuses, the court has the authority to issue a bench warrant, which means law enforcement could be sent to locate her, detain her, and bring her to court. Sounds intense, right? That's because it is.
Get out of the way.
But it's also extremely rare. Judges tend to avoid forcing unwilling victims to take the stand, especially in sensitive cases like this, because doing so can backfire hard. Jurors are human. If someone's clearly scared or reluctant, it can undermine the entire testimony. It creates sympathy, confusion, and doubt, all things the prosecution doesn't want on day one. But there's another problem brewing. Her lawyer. the one who told the government he's dealing with personal issues and hasn't responded since. That kind of silence from a legal representative is more than just inconvenient. It can border on obstruction, especially if it delays a federal case. The judge has a few tools here. He could issue an order demanding the attorney respond immediately. He could penalize noncompliance. He could even compel the court to assign a new lawyer if things don't move quickly. And all of this is happening with the clock ticking, because opening statements are about to begin. Every day she stays missing increases the odds that the prosecution will have to permanently shift their case structure. That's pressure not just on the witness, but on the entire courtroom. Now, legally speaking, victim number 3's testimony wasn't required to prove all the charges. But make no mistake, her absence does weaken the impact of the racketeering narrative. She was supposed to fill in gaps, show patterns, tie the conspiracy together. And without her, it's a gamble. The jury may feel like there's a piece of the puzzle missing. But here's the thing, even if she never shows, Diddy's far from off the hook. Because prosecutors still have major weapons in their arsenal, and some of them are impossible to ignore. Even with victim number 3 off the grid, don't think for a second that this trial is falling apart, because prosecutors still have serious ammunition, and some of it is already burned into the public's memory. Let's start with Cassie Ventura, who is widely believed to be victim number 1. Not only has she settled with Diddy for a reported 8-figure amount,
we're getting a look at new video from last month's raid at Sean Diddy Combs' home in Holby Hills. The mother of one of his sons shared the video on Instagram, calling it an excessive use of force. The footage was edited and sped up.
But she's also at the center of one of the most damning pieces of physical evidence, the 2016 hotel surveillance footage. That video, leaked and circulated by CNN, appears to show Diddy violently attacking Cassie in a hallway. It's not speculation, it's not hearsay, it's visual proof, and jurors won't easily forget it. Next up, the federal raid on Diddy's properties earlier this year. According to reports, agents seized a trove of bizarre and incriminating items, everything from surveillance hard drives to dozens of bottles of baby oil, contracts, non-disclosure agreements, and journals. They're calling it the Freak-Off Archive, referencing the alleged sex parties that prosecutors say were anything but consensual. And it doesn't stop there. Victim number 2 and victim number 4 have both agreed to testify using pseudonyms to protect their identities. Their stories reportedly mirror Cassie's, describing a cycle of grooming, coercion, isolation, and abuse masked as part of the celebrity lifestyle. These aren't one-off allegations. They're being presented as part of a pattern, a coordinated system. So even if victim number 3 remains silent, the prosecution's story still hits hard. A billionaire music mogul.
We also learned that they want to use text messages between Cassie Ventura and Diddy discussing the freak-offs. They are saying that these text messages are a strong piece of evidence because they are going to corroborate everything that Cassie Ventura says in her testimony against Diddy.
A ring of controlled encounters, a lifestyle weaponized to entrap and silence. And with the Manhattan U.S. Attorney's Civil Rights Unit handling the case, the same team that took down Ghislaine Maxwell, the government has no intention of letting one vanished witness sink their case. In fact, some insiders believe they'll use victim number 3's absence strategically, framing it as further evidence of the fear and pressure these women endured under Diddy's influence. Because sometimes what's missing says just as much as what's said. So now the jury is seated, the opening salvos are locked in, and all eyes turn to the courtroom. But one question lingers. Was victim number 3's disappearance coincidence? Or calculated? As the courtroom prepares for opening statements, the air is thick with tension. But not just because of the charges, it's the uncertainty that has everyone buzzing. Victim number 3's disappearance isn't just a scheduling issue, it's a disruption with serious weight. Her silence has become a story in itself, one that's left both the prosecution and the defense scrambling to adjust, predict, and spin. So, what really happened? Was she overwhelmed by the pressure? Did she have second thoughts about reliving trauma in front of cameras, lawyers, and a high-profile defendant? Did outside forces get involved? Quiet pressure, subtle threats, or whispered deals? We may never know. But here's what we do know. Her absence gave Diddy's team its first real win. It let them shift the narrative, weaken part of the government's conspiracy charge, and plant early doubts in the jury's mind. In a trial like this, where public opinion and courtroom perception matter almost as much as hard evidence, that's no small thing. Still, it's not the end game. Because the prosecution isn't relying on one voice. They have multiple accusers, visual evidence, seized materials, and a narrative built across 2 decades. Even if one thread unravels, the others are holding strong, for now. But the damage may already be done. Jurors are human. They read body language, they notice absence, and when someone disappears before their testimony, it creates space for suspicion, theories, and uncertainty. And that's the kind of thing that can stick in a juror's mind, long after the opening statements are over. So now, we watch. Will victim number 3 reappear mid-trial? Will she testify after all? Or will her silence become the biggest statement in this case? Whatever happens, this trial just became more than a legal battle. It's now a story of power, pressure, and the silence that can speak louder than any headline. What do you think? Was this witness scared off, pressured, or just walking away from a courtroom nightmare? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that subscribe button, and stick with us. We're tracking every twist in this story as it unfolds. Because if this is just week 1, we're in for a wild ride.